I was supposed to do a lower leg service on the forks, and then I have to replace the bottom bracket because I'm 90% sure I popped this one. It creaks really bad when I pedal, and I think it has to do with a pop bottom bracket. But for tonight, I think I'm just gonna focus on the bottom bracket. If that goes smooth and I get it done on time, I might do the lower leg service. I don't know, it's pretty late. It's like 9:40 at night. But we'll see, we'll play it by ear. I was debating whether or not to make a video on this, but I decided to go ahead and do so because I think it'll be interesting to see how these cranks are holding up. I really want to go ahead and take this bike out this weekend, so that's why I want to go ahead and make this repair. The fork, I feel like will be okay if I don't service the lower legs, but the bottom bracket, it was honestly just annoying me riding with it. Like, it just kept making noise and it felt weird, so that's why I'm making this the priority. So while I'm doing this repair, I want to talk about my injuries. I got a comment from Mad Max J6R. He asked me, can you do a video of what injuries you have had and talk more about your ankle injury and the recovery of your ankle injury? Just wondering, I might be getting a cast because I injured my ankle. So I've had quite a few injuries. Nothing recent, thankfully. I think the last injury I had was probably 2 years ago, and I got a hairline fracture on this right wrist. But I'll start from the beginning. I think my first real injury was skateboarding. I was probably like 9 or 10. I was holding on to the back of my mom's car when she was leaving from our driveway. She didn't know I was holding on, and she just left, you know, and I was on the back and we were going pretty fast. I ended up catching a rock and I fell and I hit my chin on the ground and I knocked out this tooth right here. My dad was home luckily at the time, and then he rushed me to the dentist. They were able to put this tooth back, and it's been in my mouth ever since I was 9 years old. They do say if you knock out a tooth to put it in milk and rush to the dentist. I guess the milk helps keep the tooth alive, you know, with the calcium and whatnot. This tooth is dead. At some point I will have to get a replacement, but it's still there. It doesn't function. Like, I have to bite on the side of my mouth whenever I'm chewing stuff or like biting into an apple, but it's just there for show. Wow, dude, these things look freaking good. Check this out, dude. This is not too bad. Spindle looks real good. Some wear right here, nothing too crazy. But overall, not bad, especially on the hardtail. You know, the fact that this bike takes more of a beating. Just to be safe, I think I'm gonna take apart this crank arm from the spindle and add a bit more Loctite, and then do so on this side as well. But going back to my injuries, after the tooth incident, I broke my ankle during a BMX ride with some friends. I was jumping a ramp and I landed stupidly, and then I broke my right ankle. My ankle was on this side and the top of my leg was on this side. So it just looked weird. It was a clean break, just shifted. After I broke my ankle, my friends carried me to my house, or I think I got a ride to my house from one of my friend's brothers, and I just chilled at home. I was waiting for my mom. I was a little freaked out because, you know, I didn't want her to get mad at me or like be angry. And I remember just sitting on the bed and just watching TV, and my mom comes in like, hey, how are you? What's wrong? And I have a bag of ice on my ankle, and she lifts up the bag of ice and she's freaking out. She's like, what the, you know, like, what is wrong with you? Like, this is not okay. We have to take you to the doctor. And yeah, so we go to the doctor, and the doctor says, it's a clean break. I can snap it back into place and let it heal. That'll be the fastest. I didn't need surgery. I didn't need anything. And then sure enough, the doctor says this is gonna hurt, grabs this side of my leg and my ankle, and pop, just snaps it back in place. And my mom said that was the loudest she has ever heard me scream in her life. So after he snaps it back into place, I get put into a splint, and I'm held in the hospital overnight because the doctor said my foot was really swollen and that he wanted to keep an eye on the foot to make sure that the swelling goes down, because if it didn't go down, they were gonna have to do surgery. So I was kept overnight. My mom slept in the hospital with me, and my foot was just raised on a pillow the entire night. The next day, it ended up going down with the swelling, and the doctor said, okay, we're gonna give you a week in the splint, and then once the swelling goes away, we're gonna put you in a cast. So then the week goes by, I go back to the doctors, and then I get put in a cast. And it was a high cast. Like, the cast went up to this back part of my knee, so I couldn't have function over my leg. It just needed to stay in place so that my leg can heal properly. And I was in that cast for about 2 or 3 months. I remember it was just a brutal time. I couldn't do anything. I was stuck at home. I still went to school, like a month after the injury. Or I wouldn't say a month, I would say like 3 weeks. I remember just being in a wheelchair. I had crutches for some time, and then longer commutes. Like if I had to go, down the hallways, I had a wheelchair for that. I was the type to hit the skate park as soon as I get home from school, and I would just be at the skate park all day. But the fact that I had broken my ankle, I was just at home. And then I remember really getting into drawing. I figured, I'd do something productive to keep my mind sane, and drawing was really a good outlet for me. The healing process was pretty smooth. I didn't have any pain. I did have a bit of discomfort. Sometimes the leg would get itchy, and then I just need to scratch it with like a chopstick or a fork. And then showering was a pain too. I had to wrap the whole cast in a bag. To be honest, I wouldn't shower every day because of how difficult it was. Granted, I wasn't doing much physical activity, so I wasn't sweating that much. But I also didn't like showering every day because of how much work it was. I think this is our guy. I think the total healing process, or the healing time for me, was 3 or 4 months in the cast, and then I had like 2 months in the boot. I remember when they took off the cast, my skin was just crusty. It was nasty because that part of my leg hadn't gotten showered or washed for that 3 or 4 months, and then it just felt weird. Like, I remember them taking off the cast, and they gave me the boot, and they said, okay, your bone is healed, you can walk. But even walking felt awkward. I was really nervous. I didn't want to put any pressure on the ankle because I thought it was gonna break, but the doctor had reassured me that the bone was healed, and that it was just discomfort that I was feeling. It did take me a while to get to walking on the boot, and the doctor also mentioned that he didn't want me walking that much. Like, he just wanted me to do a few steps a day or a few minutes a day. We got both sides of the bottom bracket out. Ironically enough, the previous bottom bracket I had was a dub bottom bracket, and I bought the same one. But the reason I bought the same one is because it's solid. Like, I think it was just long overdue for an upgrade. That bottom bracket came from like an old hardtail that I bought used, and then that owner, had that bike for a long period of time. So I think it's long overdue for a new bottom bracket. So even after my ankle was fully healed, I was kind of hesitant on, doing certain things. I did slowly get back into BMX, but I started, you know, riding in high tops. I had an ankle brace, and that's where I'm kind of at right now with the Van Skate highs. Like, I don't feel comfortable riding in low tops. I have to ride in high tops. I don't know, it's just like this psychological thing, but it just gives me that confidence, you know, that my ankle is protected, I'm safe. Till this day, like, I need high tops. Other than riding, I feel okay with low tops, like running, walking. It doesn't really affect me. But when it comes to riding, I do feel like I need some high tops. I think I broke my ankle when I was like 12 or 13 because I was in middle school. And even to this day, I do feel it a little weaker than my left ankle. I don't know how to describe it, but when you break a bone, it just never feels the same. But it's not a bad thing. It's just more of like, it's not the same structure or the same build. Yeah, it heals. Yeah, you can use it, but it just, I guess you know that it's off. Like, it's not 100%. But in my experience, I've never had any setbacks from it. I feel like I can do anything and everything. After I broke my ankle, I was in wrestling in middle school, and I got headbutted. You know, somebody was coming up, and as they were coming up, they headbutted my nose, and my nose broke, and I got surgery for that. I was bleeding like crazy, and then when I would take deep breaths through my nose, one nostril would close and the other would stay open, and that was because of the way I broke it. But then after the surgery, I have a functioning nose. It works. After I broke my nose, I had another BMX incident where I was trying to grind a rail, and I guess I didn't get high enough on the rail, and then somehow I got locked up and I flew forward, and then I cut the back of my ear right here. I landed on the side of my head really bad, and it was bleeding like pretty crazy, like a lot of blood pretty much. I was with a buddy of mine, and then I held something on my ear to help with the bleeding, and then I ended up going to the hospital, and I remember getting like 4 stitches back here. It wasn't anything crazy. Like, I could still function. I had my hands, my legs, I could still walk, do things, but the blood was just a lot. And again, it was my mom that took me to the hospital and we had to get the stitches. She was a little upset. And then after that injury, I never really had anything else until I got into mountain biking. I think I was 25 when I had my mountain biking incident. I fractured my right wrist. I was on a trail in Laguna, and then I did something stupid, and I hopped off my bike, put my hand out, and I just felt it. I felt my hand just give out, and I was like, what the heck? And I'm looking at my wrist, and I'm like, that felt weird. And I knew I couldn't ride down the rest of the trail. It felt too awkward, and I said to myself, I was like, there's something wrong. And during that time, it was kind of late, you know, it was like an evening ride or afternoon, and my buddy and I walked down. We go to my car, I drive home, you know, and then I go to work the next day, and I'm lifting things, I'm, you know, using my hand or my wrist like normal, but I realized that I have to accommodate for it. Like, I have to hold things a certain way, and that wasn't right, you know, something was off, and I knew it. And I remember my wife seeing my hand, and then she was like, hey, like, your wrist is purple, it's thick. So I didn't end up finishing this swap yesterday because I completely forgot that I had told my wife I would help her with something in the kitchen. So I basically put everything down. I went to go help her, and then I was gonna come back and continue working on this, but I was way too tired. So here we are the next day. Let's see if we can get this done. So going back to my injury about my wrist, I come home from work that day, you know, where I was holding things awkwardly, and I was using my wrist like normal, but slightly different than how I would normally use my wrist. And my wife looks at my hand and she sees it's all purple, And then my mother-in-law sees it and she's like, dude, you gotta go to the hospital, or go see a doctor. So because both of them were like nagging me to go to the hospital, I ended up going. To be honest with you guys, I thought it was just sprained or swollen, so I was just gonna wait it out until it got better. But I ended up going to the hospital, and then the doctor said I did have like a hairline fracture. I got into a cast, a short arm cast, like right here, and that wasn't too bad. That was like a month or two with a cast, and that is pretty much the most recent injury I've had. Thankfully, nothing has happened since. I'm trying to give it as good of a cleaning as I can, because when this thing is on my bike, I tend to not clean it. I just leave it as is. Can't forget this guy. But you know what? As I get older, I've come to the conclusion that injuries suck, and a lot of the times they are not worth it. All the times they're not worth it, actually. I'd much rather go home and not get hurt than to get hurt and not go home. Alright, so these, since they're brand new, they're spinning a lot better than my old ones. I'm gonna throw 2 of these bad boys on each tire. So I'm gonna hold off on the lower leg service. I think I can get it done. I just don't wanna risk it and not have this bike for the weekend. Like I mentioned earlier, the bottom bracket, the one I had before this new one, was creaking pretty bad. It still worked, believe it or not. Like I could still pedal and get around, but the noise was just annoying me. Like I couldn't deal with it. On the rides, it was just non-stop. So that's why I haven't really been riding it, because I just didn't want to deal with the noise. It was cool to talk to you guys about my injuries. I don't think I've ever brought them up all in one video. I think I've brought them up in various videos, like an injury here, an injury there, but to go over them and really break down each and every one of them, I don't think I've ever done that. So it was cool to kind of talk about it, because then it allowed me to get some memories back, and revisit some of those moments. It is currently 8 p.m. at night. I have to go walk my dogs. So that is gonna wrap up this quick fix on the Hardtail. I hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll catch you next time.